I just make all that happen because of some minor wizardry. And here we go.
Well, it's 44 degrees here in Flushing, New York City. I'll start it off with the weather. 44 degrees, and it's partly cloudy out here in Queens, New York City.
It's 44 degrees at the airport, which is kind of silly because nobody lives at the airport. George Carlin, hippy dippy weatherman. Anybody? Welcome to episode 6 of Old and in the Way. It's good to see everybody here. This is my favorite time of the week when we get together with fellow writers and friends and family members and try to put on a show while I get yelled at by them, which has been so far, we've been off to a pretty good start. I think we're only 8 minutes over, which I think I'm getting better at this, right? Has anybody been keeping track? Am I trending down or in the right direction? No?
No. But you know what? Keep shooting for those highs. You'll get there, Jay. Don't worry.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But listen, you know what? This is my week. And you want to know why?
Well, last week was a crap-ass week because there was no show.
Why? Yes, that's true. There was no...
And not to mention, you didn't tell me that until the time that we would have normally recorded the show. I said, where's the Zoom link? So that was something.
Yes.
And that really set my whole week off terribly.
I am deeply sorry about that. I did not get the word out far and wide to everybody that we were taking a beat last week. I'm having so much fun doing this, and honestly, I could, as evidenced by what's about to happen, sit and talk to you guys about anything for probably any length of time, which was...
And you took up a lot of conversation from Edie because Edie was very disappointed.
Yes.
She had a plethora of words.
A plethora.
And words to express and share. And she had like thousands of words to share. And I think she only got in 30.
Yeah, and this becomes well, this is the week then, because this week we turn it over to you guys, and this is Scott, Carlos, you're going to love this, because this week, the title of this week's episode is Tell 'em Marge sent you, and it's influenced, I just like to pick weird titles, and it's influenced by Large Marge, the famous storyteller from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. If you happen to remember the movie, if you haven't, please go watch it. But what I wanted to do this week, the last few episodes have been kind of quasi-academic. We've talked about like lots of buying advice and writing advice. This week I want to do some story time, kind of take it in a different direction. And I asked our 20th Century All-Stars, for all of our listeners and viewers, I asked the All-Stars to come prepared with some stories this week of... we'll just say a wide range of, really, really memorable experiences to those kinds of things that if you could possibly somehow erase it from your mind, you would do that, and everything in between. And I'm not a veteran writer, so I don't have a lot to offer in this category. So we're going to be leaning heavily on Mike and Carlos and Eddie for this, and Scott.
I
got absolutely nothing to offer today, not even a little bit. But
do you have cool. Incredible snow blowing?
Yeah, I was going to try it like that, maybe.
No.
I almost lost my hand, and that would have been a cool story.
Maybe one time, like you drifted off in an aisle at Costco and couldn't find your way back to Jen or something like that.
No, I'm here to listen to the great stories. I was going to suggest this as a topic at some point, so this is exciting.
All right.
Although, point of contention, though, can we really call Eddie a 20th Century All-Star? She looks like she was born in maybe 2001.
Well... Those are two really good points there. The first one is about the age thing, which being a married man and a father of a daughter, I've learned over the years, you don't talk about shoe size and age are things that are generally...
Or you guess obviously low.
Right. But, I did think like I don't want to over-engineer this, but I think I'm beginning to think like if we had like an initiation, I think 3 appearances, makes you like an official 20th Century All-Star for life. So Eddie, you're right on the precipice here. We're not like we don't have a crested blazer to give out, but we do have some gear. Before we get into the trying to keep us moving, you're doing great, keep it going. to the topics du jour today. I want to go through a couple updates. Again, we're going to get into story time in a bit, and if we have time, also I want to talk a little bit about got the Vegas run for me coming up, which I know is not a huge deal for everybody else here, but I'll chronicle it. But I'm riding to Vegas in 2 weeks to see Taylor Swift, and she doesn't have a breakup song about me yet, which is my dad joke that I like to use over and over again. So we'll be talking about that hopefully. And I totally am lost trying to put saddlebags on my bike, so I need a little technical help. So we'll maybe get into that as well. And so a couple other little side stories in addition to our story time. Before we keep moving, let's go around the room real quick and just say any riding news, anything, any tales from the road over the last week or so. I know it's been cold up in the Northeast, but how are you guys doing up there? You been able to get out at all?
Yeah.
No, I haven't been on my bike yet.
Yep.
This
Yep.
year?
I did 72 miles before I did this show today. So I got in some nice Gold Coast, North Shore, South Shore, a little bit of there, zipping around and wandering through areas in there, which was good. I got my 72 miles of wind therapy this morning. So I got
Nice.
that.
How do you deal with Mike? I wanted to ask. I'm assuming it's easier for Carlos to get out in the winter than it is for you because the roads by you are probably a lot less traveled, or Mike is in, for our listeners and viewers, in a more rural area, and Mike represented by, I've got you in New York State somewhere, one of our in our marketing material as our New York State representative. So I would think, just like yesterday, I went out riding after a couple days of rain, and there's gravel, there's rocks, you got to be careful of all that kind of shit. The winter must be pretty tough for you. Is that a bad assumption, or how are the roads?
No, usually, well, this winter has been pretty mild for us. So, but a typical winter where they salt and sand a lot,
Oh yeah,
through the snowstorms, I usually like to wait until the roads kind of naturally clear from all that debris, rain and traffic and stuff, because a lot of the secondary and what do they call that, tertiary roads?
yes, good word.
They're like beach roads. There's so much salt and sand in there that I usually like to hold off until April, anyway. Just
Yeah,
because you ride, and a lot of the roads up here, they're narrow, they're twisty, they're fun to ride in the summer.
right.
But you hit a tight turn and hit a whole long patch of sand and salt, then it becomes a
screwed.
whole new experience.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
And it is unique because depending upon the county that you go in, you know, where some areas are heavy on the salt and some areas are heavy on the sand.
Yeah.
And those are the criteria you got to really watch for. I mean, my buddy was taking me a few weeks ago. We were up in Connecticut and zipping around there, and he was going around these curves. Now, as a trike, I was a little bit more confident taking these curves and wondering what icy black ice am I going to hit
yeah.
on that stretch. And he was zipping around. I said a little bit too fast. But and it's true. You have to watch for those conditions. I think in Edie's case, Edie, correct me wrong. You live in the city. You live
I'm in Astoria.
in Astoria. So, but you go. I mean, I guess Astoria, Manhattan. I think of our other Hog members who are in the city. That there you got the reverse. You got pothole city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
got-
really off track. A lot of off tracking there. Huge potholes.
Yeah. So things like that.
And Jay, I remember the first time my dad laid down his bike was because of sand. It was out in Bolton near our old house in Connecticut.
Yeah, that's a big. There's plenty of sand in general, just like from the weather. Excuse me, and we've had some of that here in San Diego. And as I've mentioned before in the show, there's a strip that runs from Coronado to Imperial Beach, where I live. That's the ocean on one side and the bay on the other, and it's called the Strand. It's this 8 mile thin strip of road. And after we talked about, I think it was the last episode, we talked about Mike, talking about exactly this, laying down a bike in sand, and I went out that afternoon, and I'm coming back down, and the southbound lanes run closest to the ocean side, and the sand just blows right over the road at spots. So like I'm going down, you're doing 70 miles an hour, then all of a sudden you see there's like what would be like two wheel lanes worth of clearance through sand from like what it would look like snow if it was winter. And that was kind of a pucker moment as you can feel like the sand hit you in the face as you go through it. But yeah, it's definitely it's a lot of stuff you don't think about in general
But
that you have to watch out for, especially even without the winter here, just from the rain and stuff dragging everything out.
but a takeaway that I think our listeners should come away that if they're going to go out riding, you know, be aware, of like what are the conditions where you are in the area. It might be sea level, or you might be going high altitude, so you might be climbing those hills and climbing those mountain passes where, yeah, you're in the city. It's pretty cool. It's warm.
Yeah,
Your elevation. So know where you're traveling to. Check the weather, the conditions up there, if it's possible to see. And and if one thing is if you're going with by yourself, then you can be slower, you can be more watchful, your head is on a swivel. If you're going with another person, now you're trusting on another person to either they're leading, you're leading, and being aware of the road conditions. So just be mindful of the weather, what's typical in your area. Like Mike says, he likes to be careful because knowing those roads up there, before I start taking mine, like for today, mine was more residential. So I know that the road and those villages take good care. But if I was going back up to Westchester or upstate, I have to be mindful of those areas. So just be careful of the areas.
yeah. I'm at sea level, so I'm at 0, or actually maybe 6. I think is my technical altitude. And I've learned now here for us it's like 4,000, 4,500 feet. And Newman, you know more about weather than anybody I know, so I'm not sure if this is a static kind of thing, across this geography. But around 4,000 feet is where the snow will fall.
Yeah, well, you'll go down 2 degrees for every 1,000 feet that you go up. So,
Okay.
like for example, I'm 41 degrees where I am in Denver, 6,200 feet above sea level. But if I don't ride, but if I rode out to Evergreen and went up a couple 1,000 feet, it would be below freezing, and then I would probably start paying a lot more attention to any wetness on the roads.
Yeah, that definitely is like now I went in October, November was maybe the last time that I went. The 8 is the freeway that runs east to west here, but it goes through the mountains, and that was where that I had that experience we talked about a few weeks ago where I was freezing my ass off. And Mike, I don't know if you were on this episode, but when we finally got where we were going and descended the grade and got to the desert on the other side, one of the nice toasty warm bagger dudes that has the dashboard with heaters and pastries they're cutting, all their heated gear. He was like, yeah, it was 48 degrees at the coldest point over that mountain. So I'm like, yeah, that's we don't go near that. But this, when I go to Vegas in a couple weeks, that's going to be my I won't be getting too high in the altitude. The rain looks like precip's not going to be an issue. Wind is going to be something that they tell me. The people at my Harley dealership were telling me the wind could be a little tricky.
Jay, I'd like to propose two things, and then I'm gonna push you back in line there. One, I'd like us to consider you're the guy that's going to Vegas, and I'd like us, the rest of our all stars here,
Mm-hmm.
to give you ideas or propose things. Have you considered? How you do it so that you haven't heard any of our suggestions of what you should be
Yeah,
bringing.
yeah,
You haven't heard about prepare for long distance. You haven't heard any of us. So we'll offer our insight onto your trip. That's number one.
yeah.
I'll do that. Number two is since you started this whole thing about ideas, trips, you start us off by the three questions: your favorite place you would never go to, and your dream place. Give us it in 3 minutes or 3 minutes or less.
Yeah,
Take it away.
mine's gonna be quick because I don't have a lot of experience. And Carlos, your last point there, like when you're talking about what stuff to bring, things like that, that could be a good story catalyst. Like, is there something one of your stories revolve around something that you didn't bring with you or did bring with you that turned out to be like Thank God I had that corkscrew. Otherwise, we would have never fought off that, Korean gang.
Leatherman,
Yeah.
Leatherman and duct tapes. Go
So
ahead, take it away.
here's mine first. I've been riding for a few years. So I'm gonna do a story of this. It was just like one of those, like, it's I wouldn't do this again, but it wasn't like terrible, but it was like my kind of like my it was just a dumb thing to do. So before I got my Harley, I had a Suzuki GSXR 250. Yeah, which you can get, that's a 250cc bike, 400 pounds soaking wet. You can get up to highway speed on that thing, but it feels like you're riding a vacuum cleaner in a very unsafe manner. So, no offense, Suzuki's a great bike, built solid as a rock, but it's a small, compact. You're kind of over the handlebars a little bit, and you're just like, yeah, and those things operate at like 9,000 RPM is like the sweet spot, So if you're not used to that, I mean, it sounds like you're killing, the thing. So anyway, I didn't like to drive on the highway, so I got invited to happy hour for work. I live in Imperial Beach, which is the southwesternmost city in the U.S. I got invited to happy hour in Del Mar, which is about a 45-minute car ride through normal highway traffic north of me. It's where Del Mar Racetrack is. It's right on the water. You've probably seen this place in pictures and stuff. So because I don't ride on the highway, I have to figure out how to get from Del Mar or from Imperial Beach, where I live, to Del Mar if I want to go to this event. And I decide I'm going to do it, and I'm going to ride my bike, and I'm going to take advantage of the weather. It was August of last year. It was one of the hottest, heat waves that San Diego had experienced. So I took off in jeans and a Hawaiian shirt and my helmet, of course, leather vest. And it took me roughly 3 hours to go from Imperial Beach to this place in Del Mar after getting lost several times, not using the highway at all. So you're no GPS, no headset audio, no map. So just me and
Excellent.
And going north. And by the time I got there, well, one thing was cool. By the time I got there, this place that they had the happy hour, and I'm sorry if I'm screaming, was a really popular place called Viewpoint Pub, and it's extremely popular. And it's valet parking only, and if there's no parking spots around it, and it's once everything fills up. But this was my first time arriving somewhere on a motorcycle, and there's like lines of people and throngs of people trying to get into this place. And I pulled up on a bike, and like the bouncers and the valet people like waved me through like a line of crowd, the cars and people. They're like, you can park right here. And I was like, yeah, that's fucking A, man. But so that was, I only stayed, I don't drink, so I stayed, and I got there, and it was like, and this is me being a little bit stereotypical or making a stereotype. It was only it was like 6 or 8 people there. They were all women. None of them were riders. I was like sweating from head to toe in a Hawaiian shirt. If this hair gets like soaking wet, I look like, not a. So I only stayed for a little bit before I turned around and made my way 3 hours home doing the same thing. But that was I wouldn't do that ride again, but it was definitely one that stuck in my memory. So that'll get us started.
What's the normal RPM for a motorcycle when you're going at highway speed?
Good
just out of
question.
Because I'm imagining a car, it's probably around, I don't know, 2,500, 3,000 RPM. Is it a lot more on a motorcycle?
The idle is about, it depends upon they set it, 2,000.
Oh, wow.
2,000 RPMs, it depends upon the shop on there. But
9,000 RPM, that must have sounded like a leaf blower, right, Jay?
Well, I'm curious to know what Eddie and Mike have to, what you guys would say about, I don't have a tack on my Harley. On my Suzuki, I did, and it tells you like basically, and again, I was learning through this process that like the bike doesn't come alive until like 8 or 9,000 RPM, and the tachometer goes up to 13 or 14, I think, on that bike.
Oh wow!
So that's where your red line is, but there's. And again, I'm not the right person to describe this, but there's a thing that people told me that they describe like this. It's like an elasticity, like an acceleration zone, or like a band, like where when you get with a sport bike, when you get to the high gear at that right spot and the right speed, that it just feels like you're just pulling on a slingshot, and you can really. And I didn't have a lot of experience doing that when I owned that bike, but partly because I was really uncomfortable. The sound, winding an engine up to that. So I don't know what it's like on a Harley when you're going through the gears, but I don't have a tack. What do you guys think?
Have I been missing something? Because I feel like maybe I've been doing this wrong, but I haven't really been paying too much attention to like the number of RPMs I'm on.
I
You
don't
don't
even
have
have
attack.
attack. Yeah,
It's
so
pretty easy to
I'm,
Yeah.
not know, I would
I wasn't
imagine.
even looking at what gear I was on when I was starting to ride. Lately, I've started looking at those numbers, but
yeah. Are you guys? Am I the only one who? Do you guys find yourself? I have five gears, not counting neutral, and so I. Do you ever find yourself like forgetting what gear you're in when you're in the highway, like having to check like am I fifth or maybe I'm guessing it's probably sixth for
yes.
you
But
Sometimes on the top
yeah.
end.
on the highway. Only on the highway. I mean, I don't have it. It's usually not in the streets, but I will get on the highway sometimes, and I can usually tell by the sound. But occasionally, I don't trust my ears, and
Yeah,
that's
It's
if
a
you're
feel.
riding local and you're in the wrong gear, you'll
You'll
hear
know.
it.
You'll
Yeah,
hear it.
you'll
You'll
hear it.
feel it as you stutter at that stop
yeah,
sign.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
do you have to shift to a specific gear on a motorcycle, or is it just upshifting and downshifting?
First. You want to
But
start in first.
yeah,
I can imagine
the
that.
gears go kind of
You go
commensurate.
down and then up one is neutral, and then you keep on going up and up until
Right?
you get
So
Yeah.
here's neutral. So, Bob, that's your first, your starting point. If you're already up here, which is second, and you're dead stop, chances are your bike's gonna go. Oh, 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 oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Or you'll feel it when you start moving. The bike will chug. It'll be like
Yeah.
up.
yeah, like
I
a just
drove
like a
stick
car.
in a car,
Yeah.
and obviously, you have
Yes.
H style shifting there. I didn't know if
Yes.
it was just you just go up and down gears in a motorcycle, or if you have to specifically go. Like I'm in second, I'm going to go to third now.
Yeah.
But as
it's
long as you have
same-
movement, remember, as long as you have movement in there. But
Yeah.
Edie, throw us something there. Come on, tell us. You've been riding now. You've been there.
I don't know why you would come to a full stop from second gear.
Yeah. Well, I did find too that I saw something, a guy, real quick with a video showing the difference on this, Scott, with the front. And this, you remember how I dropped my bike because I hard squeezed my front brake at a slow speed and went over. I saw this guy take a front tire with no rim on it, so just the tire part, and show like push it on the ground. He did a thing basically where he did a push up, right, where he leaned down. He was holding that tire like at like a 30-degree angle. He's like, this thing at this way it can support my entire weight, and as you press on that, like the tire, the grabs, what ends up happening is like if you squeeze the brake, it throws all of this force onto that tiny bit of rubber, and it out it goes. Like, and it's a really good visual of this. So Eddie, I don't know about you. I don't have a tack, so I just kind of ear it through as I wind through the gears. But that's been my experience. So
I didn't mean to take us off base there. I was
no,
just
that's a good
curious.
question, man. That's a really good. Mike, do you have a tack on your bike?
No, I don't. It's kind of a feel thing. Usually,
Yeah.
usually kind of like a generic feel is going to be like from 0 to 10 miles an hour be first gear. Second gear be up to 20, 25. Third gear be 35, 40. Fifth gear will be for 50 and above, depending on how many gears. Some bikes have 6 gears, some have 5.
The overdrive.
Yeah,
My very first bike had an overdrive gear, which was the 6th gear.
yeah. My Kawasaki had 6 too.
Yeah,
Or my
my other
Suzuki.
bikes only have had 5 gears, and you'll kind of feel it sometimes when you're cruising on the highway. You want a little more, and you'll like shift like there's got to be another gear, and that's it. You're already in it.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Because you're kind of looking for that extra gear.
yeah.
And you're looking for that extra gear, but you also realize as you're cranking up maybe up that hill, and you say, "Geez, do I got an extra gear?" That's when you have to bring it down a gear
Right.
to get that momentum to get you back up there, and then crank it up to next gear. But it's a feel.
And from what I'm
I
told,
have,
sorry, go ahead, Carl. Sorry.
no, I have a tack, but I don't. I really don't. It's a matter of feel. It's a matter of feel that after a certain time you kind of know.
Bike
You
bonding.
know you bought your bike. You crank it. You start shifting. You're doing the shift, and then you feel it. It feels right about that moment that you change the gears. You get to know the personality,
Right.
or the dynamics of your bike.
Yeah, and there's we'll get back on topic. This is, I think, is a one of the reasons. Like my bike, I have a 1200. I have a Sportster. So it's on the smaller, not necessarily engine size, but it's your Honda Civic of Harleys, right? People probably hate that, but one of the things that they recommend, one of the common custom or upgrades for my bike, Scott, is to put an overdrive or to add a sixth gear, because what happens is, like Carlos said, is when I'm up at like 75 miles an hour, it feels like that fifth gear doesn't want to, like, it feels like if I push it much further, like I'm really straining on it. Like, not bad, but you can sense it, right? And what they say is that if by adding that, like, basically my bike has more horsepower to give, but because it only comes with a 5-speed transmission, that you lose some of that. And that was actually one of the things I read Carlos. And if you're going to take your Sportster cross country, these would be upgrades to think about. Add that overdrive, so when you're out on the highway, you can get up to 85, 90 miles an hour and not feel like you're like, wah,
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
all right. So I'm sorry. We brought us down a shifting transmission, and Scott, this is you can also ride the clutch intentionally on motorcycles, which is a whole other blow your mind difference from cars. But
Oh, really? You won't burn it out like a car?
no, it's like riding the clutch, the friction zone, and using the friction zone of the motorcycle to control speed at slow speeds, especially, is like a critical skill in slow speed riding, motorcycle
I think
cops,
Eddie
all that
mentioned
kind of
that
stuff.
last
Yeah,
time she was on. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
I think the clutches, they're kind of built on par with the strength of car clutches, but the bike only weighs a couple of 100 pounds.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
I have never, in my 3 bikes, right, 120,000 miles, I have never had to rebuild or replace my clutch, ever.
Cool.
In fact, I've never had to replace my brakes on all my bikes.
I just
because
had
of
my
the
20,000
braking.
mile service yesterday. We can take a look at.
But Jay, Mike has worn out more pairs of shoes
Yeah.
than anybody I know. So let's
Like what,
get that
rollerblades?
out there.
Those Crocs are looking like shit right now.
I bought rollerblades for that.
So Sensei, tell us the story. Tell us. Yeah, I asked you to think about this week. I asked you to think about, and for all of our listeners, the writing prompts I gave the 20th Century All Stars this week was, a ride you went on that you would love to go back on again sometime. Maybe one that you don't want to do again, like what I talked about, or something that or a ride that you've been dying to and haven't made. Just something where maybe something cosmic
or
or
a close
creepy
call.
happen. Yeah, close
Yeah,
call.
we can all be talking about stuff like that, but I think what I want to preface to that, as you guys that are in the 1 to 5 years of riding, then you're going to have great stories, because anything that you do is going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be impressive. Then when you're in the 5 to 10 year category, you say, yeah, that was pretty good in my 1 to 5, but I took it a step further. And I took it, and then you're in the 10 to 20. You got, so I can say,
It kind of sounds like marriage.
yeah,
Yeah, it does. But
pretty much.
dude, I'm going on this ride in a few weeks, which is like longer and further than I've ever gone. And I feel like that, like I don't have much culture. I grew up with void of culture in our family, kind of like McDonald's, American life. But I don't have, like, it feels like a vision quest. This is like I haven't been this psyched up to do something in a long time. So go on, Carlos.
I'm going to say the two best rides. And I say 2 best rides because it's very hard to what is a great ride? Perfect weather, no traffic, everybody's getting along, perfect kumbaya spirit. Okay. but what I was trying to say is, actually it took last year, a friend of mine I hadn't seen in over 25 years. He said, "Carlos, let's go to South Dakota." I said, yeah? He said, you and me, buddy, we haven't seen each other in 25 years. So here's a guy. I went out to Parker, Colorado.
Hey,
Okay.
that's like 5 miles from me.
See, I could have seen you. Parker, Colorado. Here's a
Thanks
guy
for
I hadn't
stopping
seen in over 25 years.
You would have never made it in the Nooms gated community.
No, we turn motorcycles away right at the gate. Get the hell out.
We don't tolerate scum.
Here's a guy 25 years ago, didn't know anything about riding, and he became the director of the local hog chapter out there. Decides that he says, come out here and experience South Dakota, Deadwood, anyway, in a way you never did before. And he took this giant RV that looks like used for like rock people, politicians, and we took this thing on a road, towed two two CVO bikes there, two really high-end motorcycles. Took us put us to a dude ranch in the middle of the country, and
Wow.
said, and we're going to ride all over. And this guy made me do. I think if either you'll appreciate this, in
Yeah.
the ride 365, I had more dealership check-ins than I ever had in my life. 11 check-ins on a dealer over a short period of time. So to
Wow.
me, that seeing the country, seeing all the standard stuff, and not in an environment where, seeing all this beautiful country on a top of high-end motorcycle with my buddy who I hadn't seen in 25 years, was just a ride to see the mountain. Now here's a guy that all I had to do was follow him.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do anything. So that would have been my best epitome, because here is a friend I hadn't seen, and yeah, we picked up like we never lost a beat. The other one that was prior to that was.
Wait, can I ask you a question before you go on that one? I don't break your stride. I'm sorry, but that on that South Dakota trip. So, did you do Rushmore? Did you do
Everything?
Yeah. What about Devil's Tower?
Everything.
I'm looking. I got the Road Trippers map
Everything.
map open right now. I'm looking at South Dakota.
Are you listening to me?
Yes,
everything.
What about Carhenge? Did you do Carhenge?
I'll repeat it again. Everything.
There's literally everything in space.
The point is, he did the ultimate trip on a high-end RV with two high-end bikes.
That's awesome.
That I was very nervous. Oh, his wife said to me, I said, I'm taking your brand new 2021 CVO. Now, CVO is Custom Vehicle Operations, a very high-end motorcycle, very expensive, Scott. Very expensive. The guy's wife is letting me have her bike. And with all my years of riding, I was so nervous. I wanted to rent the bike. And she looked at me like this. You drop it, you buy it.
Yeah.
So that was very clear. But that was a great trip. Prior to that was the most emotional, I say, is we have a Hog member that I probably introduced him into the Hog chapter about 25 years ago. He's from Japan. I was the first guy he met. And I talked to him and showed him like this. And over the years, we became very close friends. So he said to me one day, next time you come to Japan, you ride Harley. And I said, okay. I've been to Japan multiple times, and on one of those first trips. So here I am. He finally meets me. We go and I hang out with him. And he lends me his Heritage Softail bike. Okay. I have my New York license plate. I had sent it to him on the back of this Japanese bike. I am listening to Johnny Cash on the radio, and I have an American flag and a Hog flag on the back, and I'm riding on the highway, on the Seacoast Highway, and I had this big, I still remember driving along this Japanese village with 10 other guys saying, I can't fucking believe this.
Yeah.
This is
That's
awesome.
so cool.
It's like surreal.
It was surreal. That say, wait a minute, Harley bike, New York City license plate, New York City Hog flag, American flag on it, and New York plates, and I'm listening to Johnny Cash. What more can I get?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I had my Hog vest with millions of pins on it, and they never had anything like that. The following year, 2 years later, when I went to visit them, every guy had a vest with a million pins on it.
No kidding.
Yes.
That's so cool.
And on my vest, the two chapters that I rode with, and riding in Japan is a completely different story, because you're riding on the left-hand side, and that's a whole different story. But those are my two. The worst place I say I would never ride is India. Never.
Have you been there, or you just don't have any desire?
I would never. You could pay me $1 million. I would never ride in India.
Yeah.
Well, what you see at the videos of guys running all over the place, I would die in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So I'll say, and the trip that I would love to do one day is do a cross country, not in the States, but starting in Portugal, because I made contact with the Portugal Hog chapter. go through Spain because I had met the Spain hog people, go through France and keep on going and hook up with the guys from Germany, the hog group there. So my dream ride is
Europe.
start Europe. It's a Europe starting from Portugal, go across country, and of which the German hog guys have been after me to join them on sort of cross Germany and other areas to do that. So that's it.
That would be awesome. That sounds like a really cool, like the whole riding on the wrong side of the road for us thing kind of, freaks me out a little bit. I think that I might have a hard time getting used to
Oh,
that out of the gate,
the,
but
the funny story about I rode in the UK. The bad part about that, they knew I was the former director of the chapter. So imagine 25 guys, at least 25 guys meet you. And you're like, wow, this is a big ass group. And they gave me a brand new motorcycle. One of the other members, again, said, this is okay. I put you on insurance. That's great. You're a director. You got to ride in the front. Okay. So what happens? So when you got 25 guys and you say, well, I'm with the director, so you're up in the front. Well, I made the mistake. When they went zig,
oh no.
I went zag, and I said, oh, there's a truck coming
Oh
towards
no.
me.
Oh, shit.
And but everything was okay. And so that's it for me. I've had enough. Give it to everybody else.
Oh,
Edie,
that is-
Mike, jump in there.
Carlos, I saw a travel show about Vietnam, and they were showing all the motorcycles on the street.
Yes.
there,
Yes.
And the guy was showing how to cross the road, and it was kind of like wading into water. He said, you just have to go at a constant speed. Don't stop and look at the motorcycles. They will go around you. And he did. It was almost like beekeeping or something. He just walked in this slow, smooth manner, one
Yes.
step at a time, and all the motorcycles just went around him. It looked absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when you said that about India, where it's like the light turns green, and all of a sudden, like 4 lanes of traffic in every direction converge, and there's animals and there's people. Nobody's got their feet on the pegs. Everybody's just riding with their legs out, like cruising through like chaos.
Jay, one more
you.
funny story.
Yes.
One more funny story.
Lay it on it.
And this is back to the UK, and I'm gonna shut up.
Back in the
Guy-
USSR.
The guy goes, all right, Carlos, we're gonna go take our pictures in front of Buckingham Palace. I said, wow, that's outstanding. He says, but you have to understand this. It's only 4 of us. There's 25 guys here. No, just 4 of us. Why? Well, this is the way it's gonna work. We're gonna run right up to the Buckingham Palace, and as soon as we get there, the
Oh, you
police are
spread
gonna
'em.
come. The police are gonna start coming after us. I said, what? He says, yes. So you have to like stop there, take the picture, and we got to get out of there real quick. I said, are you insane? They said, no, it's okay. We've done this many times. So there I am with a brand new bike. Got to get on the left-hand side, get in front of Buckingham Palace with the fear of getting arrested and like that.
The guys with the big hats.
And the guy says, we've done this before. And sure enough, they had a group of guys already with their cameras ready to take that selfie. And guy says, ready? And sure enough, we race over to Buckingham Palace. We just about get in there, and you see, woo, 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 woo. And we're like, holy shit. And the guy says, we got to go.
That seems a little risky, man.
And that's the way
international incident.
So, anyway, all right, guys.
Yeah,
I have many stories. Go ahead.
That sounds like that could be grounds for some kind of an international incident when somebody says like, "Yeah, go run up and do this, and don't worry about the police. This is all normal." I don't know
Did
if
you get the picture though, Sensei?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
That picture.
I have to look for that picture, but it was very cool.
See,
And one traffic thing about bad habits, and this applies to us here in the States. It is frowned upon, and Scott, it's frowned upon, and we've seen it, but it's frowned upon. You're stuck in traffic. What do? Well, white line. White line is that exactly thing, going between 2 cars and saying if you have the confidence, if the traffic is moving right and you really think nobody's going to open up their car door and slam you, or cut you off, white lining down that. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't in California, or Mike or Edie, isn't it in California that they allow white lining?
Yeah.
Is that correct? So you can get there for traffic. Well,
Lane splitting is what
lane
they
splitting, white
call it. Yeah,
lighting
and it's
in
called
the UK.
filtering, and you are you're supposed to filter in California. Lane splitting is legal for traffic purposes, and that means, as Carlos is saying, you can drive between cars on the highway and on side streets, and there are certain laws about like if it's 3 lanes, you approach between like the left and center lane, and that's where you come up. But it is abso-fucking-lute god mode in traffic. Like when you get to like these, on the highway, it's amazing. But like you get to these, like California's lots of long lights and things like that, and when you can just cruise past, like especially if somebody's kind of dogging you, and you can feel somebody trying to get around you or do something, and they're just driving aggressively in a car, when they have to stop and you just cruise by. I like to go back and look on my video to see the faces of the people in the cars as I fucking as I slam through. But yeah, you do have to be careful,
Well,
obviously.
and the reason I brought that up was because in the UK, you had 25 guys were stuck in traffic. 25 guys just went through
Yeah.
between the cars, and I was like, when at the next slide, I tapped the director. I said, "You guys can do this?" He
Yeah.
said, "Oh yeah, all the time." So anyway, Jay, let's move it to our other
Yeah,
guest
and
there.
when I lane split, like I will often have people that will go around and pass me around other cars. Like other guys fly. I take it slow, but there are people that like they don't tap the brakes; they just go through, which to me seems dumb. So Eddie, you're
in
up.
New York, they'll spit at you, flick cigarettes at
Oh
you.
yeah,
They
people are
swerve
good.
to
Yeah,
close the lane on you.
yeah. I will give California this. People generally, I made a couple of jokes, but generally speaking, people move out of the way, and people tend to keep the lanes clear. And if all I gotta do is make a rev my engine a little bit, and usually people will see, and they, so I always try to wave and be nice. Eddie,
Eddie, you're up.
tell us a story.
I'm not. I rev my engine too. I only started white lining recently because I've only been riding for under a year. Since I ride a lot in the city and Manhattan and Queens, I just try to be super careful, but baby steps. I've only started white lining lately, and it's an art.
It is an art. It is an art that you have to have the confidence, because if you hesitate, if you are not sure of, remember, always have that exit point, because you don't, if you have, that the traffic is going to come on, cut you across, etc. So you just better wear it. Anyway, tell us, even in that year, a
Yeah,
funny
what's the
story.
craziest, funniest? Give us your most memorable story.
Well, what? Where do I start? The best ride or the craziest?
Well, think about it. You just pulled up to the garage, at some really old school custom, bike shop, and everybody's kicking the can around, bullshitting and chopping it up. You got it. The eyes turn to you. It's your turn to contribute a story.
Well, I mean,
what are you gonna tell
my
them?
favorite story is when I rode to one of my first long rides on my bike last summer was to Milwaukee.
No kidding. From New
And
York?
yeah,
How long did that take you?
it took me like 4 days because I wanted to take it pretty easy.
Yeah, there's
Jay,
a lot of.
I thought you just asked if Milwaukee was in New York, and I didn't know what to do.
From New York.
No,
I thought you said
yeah.
from New York.
I'm with you now, but I was like, wow, that's an indictment of the public school system in Connecticut.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and just as the crow flies, if you're going from New York to Wisconsin, there's the Great Lakes are in the way. So tell it. I'm sorry, I interrupt you. Continue. So you went from New York to
I and
Milwaukee.
yeah, just like nice riding, lots of highways and different
Well,
types of surfaces, and just as we were arriving in the town after the last rest stop of the whole trip, it started raining really hard, and we were just getting out of like an exit, out of a rest stop, and I guess there was some road work, and just the visibility was barely in front of me because it was pouring. I was getting onto the highway, and there was a drop of about that much from the entrance ramp onto the highway,
Shh.
and I fishtailed
Oh,
right
God.
there.
Ooh.
There were semi trucks coming in my direction, and I was on the intercom with the person I was riding with. you know,
Did you have an ah shit moment?
Yeah, that sounds like a
yeah, I saw the tunnel of light and all that.
Did you?
I
You had to come
cannot,
to.
I
You had to
can't
come
believe
to
I
Jesus.
don't know how I
You had to
kept
come
that
to
freaking
Jesus
off.
moment, right?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I would have burned a grommet in my seat with my butt.
Yeah,
That was something.
that's a puck. That's a pucker up moment right
It was
there. Yeah,
I
Wow.
felt the bike. I don't know how I kept it up. I didn't It was terrifying. I had
That
to
sounds
stop under
awful.
the next overpass and just catch my breath and
yeah.
cry. I
How long?
cried so hard for about half a minute into my helmet before I just took a breath and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go again. And I just
Phew.
roared into my helmet. I was, it was
Wow.
terrifying. And I think I had been really cocky before that. I think I've been riding for about a month before that, maybe less. I don't know.
I commend you. I commend you for because you had a really bad experience. That the fact that you fishtail, you didn't roll, you didn't slide, you didn't, which would have probably could have affected not only physically, but mental outlook on
Yeah.
saying,
Oh,
Shit. Yeah.
screw this shit. But
Yeah.
because you
yeah.
managed to hold it, you kept your shit together. That's
Yeah.
kudos to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Kudos.
I think like every incident that I've ever had has kind of like been such an important moment for me because after that I
Was it humbling?
totally I got a newfound respect for riding because I think I was too cocky because I was very good from the first day at riding. I just kind of took it for granted and
what's
that's when I
what's
really started respecting. There's some I'm not as we're not as safe as we think we are in the
what's
beginning.
Yeah.
what's the takeaway that you would like to share with like Scott if Scott's learning how to ride? What's the experience you came out of there? What kind of advice would you give Scott?
Shit, make sure you can see the surface of the road at all times.
Yeah.
Watch for height changes.
I just stay alert at all times. Be prepared to die every moment.
Well, that reminds me. There was I found a quote recently from Evil Knievel that was, anyone can jump a motorcycle. The trouble begins when you try to land it.
Jay, kind of reminds me of the first time I was learning to use my table saw and almost took my finger off.
Yeah.
I was millimeters away from a YouTube worthy catastrophe, and it humbled me and gave me like a holy shit, calm down, you are not as good as you think you are moment.
Yeah, you feel like this big. I mean, just hearing you retell that, Eddie, I can think of that like you're kind of heart sucking, and it's so there's these moments, Carlos, like you talked about before with that, surreal experience in Tokyo riding with your friend. As a new rider, being on the highway in nowhere California feels to me like that surreal experience because I've never had it before. And the extremes, the highs and the lows are very extreme because that same day you have that surreal experience, like Eddie said, a few minutes later you could be having the experience that she had, and it's like when you're new, it's a lot of it's a lot of ups and downs, and it's very easy to get like I am the king of the world, holy shit, like you gotta.
Jay, do you ever have the experiences like Carlos was saying, like if you're going up maybe like the Pacific Coast Highway, like, oh my God, how did I get so lucky?
Yeah,
that
every
I'm here
day.
right now?
Yeah, I am. I there's that road that I talk about, the Strand that runs from, and this is like a loop that I'll do when I'm riding locally. But when I come home and I come out of Coronado and you drive past where the Navy SEAL training base is there, and it just opens up and it's bay and one side ocean, and you're just flying in the sun. They call it the Golden State for a reason, and the water is like it's on fire, and the waves are crashing, and people are kite surfing, and it's like no matter what I'm dealing with in my life, I'm like where I am and what I'm doing right now. I think 15-year-old me would be happy with how things turned out. So keep going. It's very surreal in that for sure. So that's definitely something that But then
So
again, you hit the, then you accidentally kick the shifter and downshift in the fourth gear at 70 miles an hour when you're not expecting it, and the whole fucking bike goes yeah like that, and you almost and then you're like, okay, I'm alive.
Woo!
Eddie, so you gave us the shit moment. Can you give us one quick? Was a great ride. You would do it again without an shit moment.
Oh man, I think the first time I went to Storm King on my own alone was probably the best ride I ever had.
Describe Storm King, because for the
It's
for
the
the
it's
Yeah.
the it's one of these twisties near the city, about 40 minutes away from the city, I guess. Bear Mountain, like
Oh,
a
yeah.
national park
Okay.
with mountains and really nice twisty roads and great views off the mountains and excellent place to ride.
That's cool.
cool.
Yeah,
It must
that's
be pretty cool to be driving out of the city though and look in your
Well,
mirror and see the New York City
You
skyline.
can experience two different worlds on the same day, and that's what I love about motorcycling
cool.
too. It's just in the morning I could be in the middle of the city having a coffee, and then in a couple of hours I can be fishing in the mountains, just chilling.
to
That's
Scott,
cool.
to your point, we're the New York City Harley chapter, and so many other chapters say, "You guys in New York City, where do you guys ride?"
Yeah.
And the sad part about it is we end up riding outside of the city, because technically we're called New York City, but we really are upstate, Westchester, and other areas, or Long Island for that.
Long Island in the winter and upstate in the summer.
yeah.
Yep. Mike,
Mike, speaking of upstate,
tell us.
All right, my oh shit moment.
yeah.
All right, my best, worst oh shit moment was when I had the shadow and I was working PMs. I'm coming home. It's about 12:30 at night, and
That's
it's
the
70
first
miles
bad
an hour.
habit.
Yeah, and at 70 miles an hour, my rear
Where
tire
where were you stationed then? Where Mike
I was
works for the
working in,
MTA.
Upper Manhattan, 215th Street. So I was coming out of Manhattan on the Sawmill, and at 70 miles an hour, my rear tire blew out.
Shit.
Ooh,
Yeah.
gosh.
When you
So,
say blowout, like shards of rubber flying everywhere,
Yeah,
or
like
like
a NASCAR
exploded,
kind of thing.
exploded, lifted my ass in the air, dropped down on the rim,
Whoa.
and
Whoa.
so now I'm trying to slow the bike down. Nobody will let me over because we live in New York and you're going slower than the traffic wants to go. So every time I tried to slow down the bike, the back of the bike would try to pass me on the left. Now I'm flat tracking.
Oh no.
oh my
Straight
god.
up. I got it straight up. I hit the brake. Now the bike flat tracks to the right, and then I get it straightened back up again. The whole time I'm trying to slow down, and nobody would let me over. So I ended up pulling into a cutout between the northbound and the southbound for emergency vehicles to turn around as traffic's flying back
Holy
on
shit.
both ways. So I actually had to push the bike because the bike had stalled. The engine stalled out from the engine speed, because you went from like 70 to 20 in about 30 feet.
Yeah.
right.
And I pushed the bike across the road. I had to, that's when you find out AAA doesn't do motorcycles.
No
And-
shit.
And you have to
You
call
weren't
a
wearing a
flatbed
spare?
to come strap your bike down and then tow you to an impound lot until you can get the bike back to the dealer,
Wow.
to get the new tire.
Well, you were trying to wrestle it back and forth. I mean, I don't know if this is a stupid question if you remember, but like, did your feet come off the pegs? Did you
No.
like? Yeah, I'm
Well,
curious to
no, I
know.
shouldn't say
I
no.
asked that
I
because I'm
shouldn't
kind of
say
curious
no.
to know what I'm gonna do when that happens. Like, are you?
What I did was, I don't know if you the best way to watch it is to think about it is watch motorcycles ice racing.
Oh yeah,
Right, and where the guy gets sideways, puts his foot down to keep the bike.
Yeah.
That's what I had to do to keep the bike up. Then when I got it up, pick my foot up, and then
Other
when
way.
the bike went the other way, put my other foot down.
gotcha.
Because there was nothing on the rim. So basically, every time I tried to stop, the back of the bike is like, no, we're still going fast.
Yeah, that must
So,
have
yeah,
been.
that
I
was
would have
my-
caused
Jesus.
a massive traffic problem when my bowels released.
I know,
Yeah.
crap, man. That would have been
Oh,
like, yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
And that was the first time I ever had to call my wife at like 1:00 in the morning to get me because the road, I was stuck on the impound lot. and it was the last time she ever answered the phone after 11:30.
Yeah, nothing good happens after 11:30. Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, that was such a pain in the ass. I had to take the kids and put them in the car and drive down the sawmill.
I had to
It's
go
like,
pick up my
sorry.
bike yesterday morning from the garage just for routine maintenance. I was like, I'm not waking my wife up. I'm just going to take an Uber and get out of here. I'm not going to ask for this.
Well, back then, I know there wasn't even Uber.
Oh God.
Oh yeah,
no,
right.
no.
Exactly. Yeah, no shit.
So yes, I was basically stuck on the road.
All right, you gotta wash that out. You gotta give us my heart. I have too many heart palpitations from the last few stories. We got Eddie almost fishtailing into the museum in Milwaukee, rolling into the the Harley Museum in the Mecca. Fishtailing sideways. Mike blowing a tire. Tell us. Give us
That's
something.
a feel-good story.
Yeah, give us something to feel good.
Give us a palate cleanser.
Something to warm the
on that one.
cockles of our hearts or whatever.
Actually, the feel good story is basically every ride is a feel good story. I enjoy every ride that goes well. I enjoy the weather. I enjoy the scenery, the smells, the air currents, the temperatures that change when you're riding because you're immersed in all of that. And every ride is special. So
Yeah.
other than like riding in the city, which I hate, like in Manhattan, and I probably will not do it unless I have to. Every other trip is good. I mean, the whole point, you're by yourself, you're in the zone, you know, you're realizing like you can even feel the humidity change
Yeah.
when you ride. Like you'll feel it as it blows over your arm. When the humidity gets heavier, it actually feels like when you're in the ocean and you move your arms back and forth under the water, and you can feel the water moving over your hairs on your arms.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Right. And you'll like the plants, the smells, the grass. You can smell when people are cooking their dinner or doing laundry. You can smell dryer. You smell all that stuff when
Mike,
you're riding.
when I lived in Tampa, I had an open top Jeep, and you could smell right before it was going to rain.
Yeah.
Like Jay, I don't think I was with you. It might have been Bill. I pulled over real quick and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "It's about to pour on us."
Yeah.
How do you know? I just know.
Instinct.
And maybe beat
Taste
it by
it.
30 seconds, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm gonna call you out,
Imagine
Mike.
on a motorcycle, it's very similar. The smell is called petrichor for our
Oh,
fans out there.
there's a scientific cost to that, right? Yeah, that's the smell
And
of
Scott,
rain.
to your point, that's another conversation subject matter of what do riders carry or should carry
rain gear.
if in the event they get caught in the rain. What is the strategy? Should there strategy? And then if you're riding by yourself,
What
there's
do you
one
do?
strategy. If you're riding with 5 guys, you're wondering, I hope the leader stops soon because I feel the back of my shirt is completely drenched, you know, and so that's a whole
that'd be great.
shemaggy.
Yeah.
That's a whole shemaggy on that.
Put a pin
Yeah,
in
and
the
I
tip.
gotta call Mike out because when I first started riding, some of what you just talked about were some of the things that you like kind of Mike gave me as like you're gonna love this as you get out and explore more. And I remember specifically talking about everything that you feel when in smell and the senses and how different it is, and in particular the temperature and the smells and the different feels. And I've since I started riding, I've thought about that frequently because that is like it hits you. It's like all these things that and early on overwhelm you when you're first getting all the sights and sounds and learning how to process it. But I love it, especially around here where you can go from being at sea level to up a couple thousand feet really quick, and then when you come back down and you feel all the temp changes and all the things like you said, people cooking dinner, and especially for and this is a little bit different. Like when I'll drive east and then turn around and come back, and now you're driving west into the sun, and your feet and your arms are out in front of you, and it's not too bright that you can't see, but it's baking your body like with warmth, and you can feel like the air blowing over you. It's like being in a it's like you can feel kind of everything. And the only thing I would parallel is similar to like surfing when you're in the water, when you're actually in the water, but even when you're just kind of laying on a board and there's mist and everything blowing over you, it's very like it's an immersive kind of meditative experience. So for sure. I like Mike's feel good story.
Eddie, is your motorcycle your primary mode of transportation because you're in the city?
I
Marge?
bicycle or motorcycle,
Okay.
either one.
Does it ever get old? I was thinking about what Mike was saying about really appreciating it all the time, but I wondered if you had your motorcycle as your daily drive and you did it all the time, would it become less special?
I don't know. I just started under a year
Yeah.
ago. It
Yeah,
hasn't gotten old yet, but
Mike, I
I
just
mean,
saw
I gotta
something
balance
recently.
it out because, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's
What?
okay. I saw a tweet or an Instagram post or something that said something to the effect of, if we stopped being creatures of habit and really paid attention to our surroundings, we would be just overwhelmed every day
Yeah.
by how amazing things are. And I was thinking, like, wow, if I only got out on a bike once a week and I was in a car or I was in traffic all the other days, like, wow, this feels really amazing because it's so much more refreshing than what I'm
Well,
used
yeah,
to.
every time there's a couple of days that I haven't been on my motorcycle, it is like that.
It's,
You're getting up early in the morning before work and it sucks and it's a gray day. And then
you
you
know
look
what,
out the window and you see your bike and you have a new reason to live. It makes
Scott.
everything easier all of a sudden. Just crank up the music and hit the road. And even if it's a 10-minute commute, it's just the best way
It's a
to
shot
start
in the
your day.
arm, yeah.
Scott, there's a sort of an expression, but it's there's riders who will say, well, how many miles did you do? And there's riders that say, well, where did you go? But the
Yeah.
bottom, but where'd you go? Okay, you went somewhere it's 100 miles away. It's boring. Okay, but if you went someplace that was 20 miles, and yeah, at the bottom line is, it's not the destination, it's not the ride, but that you ride.
Yeah.
Sensei, I,
That
I feel like it's the same thing with fishing. Most usually when you go fishing, people ask you if you caught a fish. It's not about
Yeah.
That's not what
that.
it's about,
That's
Yeah.
a bad day fishing beats
A good day
a
working,
good day.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I have
Most
to-
everything else.
and it's
Let
not
me-
about catching it. It's about doing it.
Eddie, I got to ask you one question. I rode from New York to Milwaukee. I did the 100th anniversary.
Oh,
ride.
yeah.
I did the 100th anniversary way back when I had hair, and that was
20 years
2003,
ago,
right?
yes.
it was good.
Well, that was a
I-
while ago, Jay, huh?
I have to ask you though, as a new rider, first of all, how many people went to Milwaukee?
Just me and one acquaintance.
Okay, how many miles? How many? How long did it take you to get out there, and how many miles were you riding on a daily basis?
Oh shoot.
I think you said
Maybe-
4 days. Did you say 4 days before it took you?
I think it took us like 4 days
Okay,
there,
so
maybe
so,
3 or
so
3 or
maybe
4
you
on the
were
way back.
you were averaging maybe 300, 400
Yeah,
miles,
yeah,
probably
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And as a new rider, did you learn that about your endurance and about your stamina and
Well,
about
I mean, the thing is, before I went, people were really skeptical. They were like, "You're going out to Milwaukee on that thing. You're not getting a windshield, and blah blah blah." And it was just like, whatever.
you got the criticism, but in
So
retrospect,
much. It was like, can you just let me go, like without any comments? Just
but
say
now,
no.
but let's think about this. In retrospect, if you were going to do that same trip, what would you do different?
I would have had my saddlebags on my bike. Otherwise, the same. I wouldn't need a windshield now either, or a bigger bike. I'd do
Okay.
the same.
Wait, do you have the Viking? Did I see your bike? Do you have those Viking saddlebags?
Yeah, we have the saddlebags
Yeah.
that you're talking about.
All right, yeah,
They're-
yeah. Before
I
we
have
wap up,
pretty
did
much
you
the
did you
same
put them on
ones.
yourself, or did you have them put on
I
the
did
shot?
not. I'm
Okay.
a girl, so I don't need to do those things.
I gotta figure. I
but
like.
good luck with that. You need to take your shocks off to put those biking bags on. They're a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it's just the top. It's the top bolt only, dude.
Right.
And so I'm gonna have to. That's on my list to figure out. And Scott, I think I want to pig pile on Eddie's question about being an everyday driver. Does it get old? I don't have to go a lot of places because I work from home, but my bike is my everyday driver. And it does, like, there'll be times when, like, I have to go do something during the workday, like run out to the pharmacy or go pick something up or whatever. And usually you're caught up in work and I don't want to. And the minute I leave, I'm thinking about what I'm not doing. But then the minute you get on your motorcycle, it's like fuck work. I don't even want to come. Like, where could I go? Like, and even if you know you have to go back, it's like, from the 2 mile drive to the pharmacy and back, whatever. I'm doing it like feeling like just great. And I was trying to say I won't belabor this too much, but I was trying to explain to my wife last week, and to a guy I work with, around like the therapeutic, like when you have aggression or stress, when you're going down the highway and the engine is just like pounding away, it feels like you're kicking the shit out of the earth. It's like very it's therapeutic. It's like you just, whatever is in you just comes out of you, and even if it's only like a 10-minute ride, it's like I feel better now.
Sounds good. Hey Jay, we're at the 1 hour mark.
Yes.
Are there any sponsors you want to mention this
I
week?
do want to mention, thank you very much. We can wrap it up, and speaking of
Carlos
which,
being a little less subtle than me, but cool.
Yeah.
We're keeping you on track here.
this week we're sponsored by the Dude's Garage, and we've got a new product we talked about. It finally made it here. This is the new coffee mug we brought, the Boss, and this is great. You can see that here on the screen, everybody here. This is great if your kids just learn how to talk, if people, ask you lots of questions at work and kind of bug the hell out of you. You just put this bad boy right on your desk, and somebody comes up and says, hey, why is it that we can't have Disney Plus and Hulu Plus? You just say, hey, right? And away they go. And you know what you'll find out over time is that people will ask you fewer and fewer questions in general. So if you're one of those kind of people and you value your little bit of solitude, I highly recommend the Boss, emblazoned with the old and away logo here on the front. So please check it out at thedudesgarage.com. We are up at the hour mark, and again, I could go on talking to you guys forever, but I want to get you back on your way for Sunday. Carlos, I want to see some pictures of that South Dakota trip. So if you can dig any of those up, and maybe if you can find any of from Japan, I think it would be cool if you want to pop some of those on your Instagram at some point.
Yeah, the Hog the Japan pictures were featured in the Hog News Hog International magazine.
Very cool.
Because they did pick up on it, and there I am holding New York City Hog flag and a couple of the other guys there in the chapter. So
okay,
pretty cool.
Okay, all right, very cool. So let's get those, and if there are any, I'll do the same. I'll see if we can find any pictures from the stories that we told. Sometimes people like to see that stuff, so I'll see if I can find a picture from my sweat run to Del Mar from last summer. We talked about saddlebags and torque screws. Next episode, we can get back to a little bit of a technical item. While I have this brain trust here, if I'm just taking off the top bolt of my shock, do I need to have it jacked up? I would assume like the shock is holding up. If I'm only taking the top bolt off of one shock, do I need to have the bike jacked up, like one shock at a time? Does that even make sense?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst, because this other shock is still going to hold it up. So, I mean, basically, the frame, it's not going to sag down. It's not. It can only sag so much. I would imagine, but this may not be the
I don't think it's
smartest.
going to sag at all unless you sit on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, only to sit on it to release the pressure on it. That might be a little bit of a pressure to be able to slip off. You might. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you were saying if it's under pressure. Yeah, I'm going to try that.
Some folks have, shops like that they compress it.
Yeah.
So to release the pressure on it. Your challenge is you're talking about a torque screw that has been locked in there with Loctite,
Yes,
Supreme Loctite, and if you don't have the right torque key or wrench there, you're going to be spinning your wheels there.
Yeah, so I started with one of these babies yesterday, and this isn't actually the one, but you can see here I broke the tip off of one of these yesterday. So I'm going to switch to, I have, like a torque socket wrench that I've watched a few YouTube videos that people have said, first of all, they said they're notoriously difficult to break loose, and usually because people mug them with Loctite. So
you don't need an impact wrench or something to do that?
I have one of those too, but I think it would strip the screw, because it's like the torque. And again, this is where the physics part of me. I took physics for like kids who couldn't read, and so they call it the principles of technology. But I'm not sure what the background to that is, but anyway, I figured I had you guys on, so I'll let you know how it works out. I'm going to try the socket head to see if I can bust it loose. If I can get it loose, then I can try to see if I can swap it out without having to put it on a jack. But getting it loose is going to be step one. So we'll see how far I get.
Yeah, I mean, I put a little penetrating oil on there, let it soak for a while. That might help you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then,
Jay, can I just add something before
Yeah.
we finish?
Please take your
Because I
time.
never got to answer the question what my dream ride would be.
Yes,
Oh,
please.
yeah.
I wanna ride cross country with Sensei.
Yeah. Let's do it.
That's my dream ride.
Let's. I think you guys should do it. And I have. I know you guys may not be watching. You're looking our guests here. You guys
Thank you.
might not have it up. I've got the Road Trippers app open right now. I've got a route mapped out that takes me through Utah into Colorado, so we can.
Nice.
I can
I'm
pick
trying
up.
to convince Jay to come out here at some point. So
Yeah,
you guys
so-
should come from the other direction.
Yeah, we'll pick up
Oh
Scott.
yeah.
You know, but all kidding aside, because this is Jay's first long distance. Prior to this, Jay, correct me wrong.
Yeah.
What was the longest
260.
trip? 260 miles. That's a going. That's
It's
obviously
one
a round
day over
trip.
like 4 or 5
Just-
hours. Yeah.
Okay, so 260 was what you did. You accomplished, and very quickly, how did you feel after the end of that day?
Awesome. I mean, I was obviously
Oh,
physically
from
tired.
the high, but were you exhausted? Were you beat
Yeah.
up? Were you like wondering what the hell was I doing?
I was physically tired and cold, but that was because, and I'm not as hardcore as Eddie. I didn't have a windshield or a particularly good jacket on that day, so I was like frozen, and you get really tired from holding yourself up at highway speeds on a Sportster. So that was my biggest takeaway. Besides like the elation stuff, physically you're beat to shit by and that was only 260 miles. 4 or 5
What's the
hours, 4 or
distance?
5
I
hours of
start
riding
yawning
time.
As soon as I get off right as I get off the bike after a long ride, I
Yeah.
start yawning. It's
Yeah.
like it's
What's the
like after you
distance?
run a marathon or something.
Jay, what is the distance that you plan to do? What is the distance from you to your final destination?
So the trip for I'm going from San Diego to Las Vegas, and I've got that mapped out. And again, it's I'm have it up here in the window. I've got that is going to be Carlos. That's a total of hang on, where is it? 345. So that's 345
Oh.
miles. It is a 6-hour trip supposedly.
Okay.
And I have a small gas tank, so I went and I can share this with you. I'll send you a link to it because I have it mapped out where I plotted out gas stops between here and Vegas, and then I depending on once you do that, you can say, okay, I can stop here at 50 miles, or if I stop
Well,
here,
what's your cruising range on that gas tank? I mean, I thought Sportsters were in the 80,
Yeah.
80,
that's it.
80 so about 80 miles.
I
is
would.
what,
I 70 is the cap I set for myself before I have to have multiple gas station chances. And when you so yeah, that's 70 is what I would go before I stop.
70,
Plus I
so
I have an emergency. I have a 30-ounce of emergency fuel can too.
you have a reserve petcock on your bike
No.
or no?
No, I don't. I
Okay.
have a new tank
Yeah, but
that I'm going to put on eventually, but I have just a straight 2.2 gallon peanut, and there's the
So you-
fuel injectors in there, so it's only like 2.1 really after.
So you
that.
have like a warning light.
I have a warning light that comes on
Right.
at about, from what I can tell, that comes on at about halfway. Once I get over 40 miles on a tank, the fuel light comes on.
well,
Okay.
never depend on a warning light.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so never. That's your first lesson
Yeah.
there. Never depend on a warning light. Use that odometer strictly if you're religious and disciplined in doing your mileage. So if you know, I mean, you could always try one day, say, what's the the
Yeah.
putt.
It's Scott. If you look at Carlos's background, Scott, and if you can see his that Captain America tank, that's a peanut style tank, like what I'm talking about.
Gotcha.
And that, so
Yeah,
it's
I didn't
only
know
a
it
couple
was
gallons.
so small. You're going to be well acquainted with all the gas stations between San Diego and Las Vegas.
I am, but there's
don't
actually
drink a Red Bull at every one. Your heart will explode.
well, my first stop is Temecula, which is kind of everybody's first stop when you're driving north from San Diego on the 15. And then I'm stopping at world's largest thermometer, so we'll hit that one, which is I've been there before. And then Barstow, you got to stop in Barstow. That's actually before the world's tallest thermometer. And then when you cross over like this, I won't need to stop. But at 50 miles, from I have a gas stop that's 50 miles from the California-Nevada border. But when you cross over from California into Nevada, the first there's that's where the first casinos are, and it's this place called Whiskey Pete's. And we didn't stop there the last time, but it's like a Pedro south of the border looking, kind of like you just pulls you in. So I'm going to fucking Whiskey Pete's this time to check that shit out. And then once we get to Vegas, we're there. We decided to stay for 3 days. So the concert, we're going to see Taylor Swift on Friday. We're driving on Wednesday, so we'll drive all day Wednesday, and then Thursday I'm going to go to Kingman, Arizona, which is there's a strip of Route 66 that runs from Kingman, Arizona to Seligman, Arizona. So that's about an hour and a half from Vegas. I'll keep driving southeast over the Hoover Dam and then down to where Route 66 is. Do that for a day and drive back up. So that's the plan so far. And then
strategy
never,
go ahead, Mike.
no, I say Jay, with your small tank, never pass up a scheduled gas stop thinking you can make it to the next place.
Yeah, no.
Because you don't know, that gas stop might be closed, or they might have no
that's true,
electricity.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that. Last
so-
night I was on this. I'm using this Road Trippers app, and it's for like Google Maps or any of those things. But so I was thinking exactly that, Mike, because I'm looking and it's like what it enables you to do is you zoom in on the highway itself, and I'm going along the 15, and you can see like here's a mark on the map that says there's a gas station there, and there's some of them where it's like you can see the nice little clover leaf off ramps, and there's like 4 or 5 blue spots there. And it's like, all right, that's a good spot. Or there's one where it's like you can't even see an off ramp from the highway, and there's a little thing away with no Yelp reviews that says like Bob's Gas, and it's like I'm not trusting that stop because
Yeah.
I did this.
One of those on my way to Missouri, Jay. That,
Yeah.
It looks a little sketchy. You're not sure about putting your debit card in that thing.
Well, for our, I don't know about each of you guys, but for our listeners, I've done the drive from L.A. to Vegas, and after you get past Barstow, as Hunter Thompson effectively named it, you get out into backcountry, and it's like lunar, like there's fucking nothing, and you don't want to stop at like some of these.
Carlos's background there.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful, but yeah, so definitely, Mike, good call on picking out.
You walking on the side of the road to get gas with vultures circling over your head.
Yeah, that's the Chevy Chase, my pants tied around my head. Yeah, so we could talk more. We could talk prep in our next episode, and when we get ready for what are some of the things, and I have to figure out how to get these saddlebags on, and that's one of my to-dos. But I did get my 20K service yesterday. Got brakes,
that would have
flush,
been,
and all that stuff.
Jay, to be honest, that would have probably, look, we all wrestle with the concept, what we can do
Yeah.
and what we should have done.
Yes.
And I'm saying is,
I wrestle with
the
that
fact-
too much, I think.
well, the point is, you had your bike in for a service job.
Yeah.
And while they have it up there and there, it would have taken them no time because they had it there. They have the right tools. How much more in labor it would have been, yada, 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 can be debated.
Yeah.
But I'm saying is it's taking advantage of when that service point, you normally would have brought it in. So because you're talking about, this is not changing a mirror. This is not fixing a broken taillight, which is nice. This is something that requires your safety, the balance, something that if, God forbid, you didn't tighten to the specs or you missed it to a certain way, that's a separate conversation.
Yeah, and I just this is what I was looking at. Like they I know we got to wrap this up, but actually, and every bike manufacturer probably does something different. Harley does, from what I understand, 1, 10, and 20K on their bikes. And I bought a used bike, but call me a sucker, call me whatever. I bought a warranty on it that covers me for a few years. So and it's basically like a new car warranty through Harley. So like you have to get the maintenance done. So this 20K includes everything they do in the 1 and 10, and it looks like chain maintenance, all kinds of all of your your fuels and filters, a lot of O-rings. I don't know where they go, but that's the kind of stuff we can take a look at.
Brake
This
pads.
brake pads, and they did tell me that in addition to the 20K, they said I asked them to check my brakes, and they would do that anyway, but I was low on fluid in both front and rear, and there was moisture in both front and rear, so I had front and rears flushed as well. So that was like an extra $150 to have them do that. But brakes seem like they're important.
Low, or was it all right?
What's it? My blinker fluid? Is
Yeah.
No, yeah, I got a new set of Johnson rods here. Yeah, they see me walk into the dealership. They're like, "Yeah, move the display takes up front. This guy's a mark."
Jay, I won't be around next week. I have to go to Missouri.
Oh no!
Spring break. Apologies to the few good people in Missouri there are, but I would rather be with you. But I'll miss you guys. I'll
spring break.
I'll definitely watch later.
All right, cool, awesome. Anybody else got any? Carlos, Mike, Eddie, what do you guys got going on this week? Anything big coming up?
Nope, nothing for me.
Nope, we're calm week there. Just the weather's going to be there, so I get out to ride whenever I can. And Eddie, I'll say to you, I have when I don't have a destination and I'm looking just to clear my head, I call it my loop. And the loop is I leave from my house, I go all the way out to talking to what these guys are saying. I go out to Jones Beach, and there talk about you're going from an environment, you smell the ocean, you smell everything. It's a feel good. I do a giant loop there.
Love that.
I do that to Fire Island, make a loop then, go across the bridge, so I see all the expensive houses that'll be washed away every year.
Yeah.
And I'll show you a Target Rock, and I'll show you the only sand miners monument.
Anytime, Sensei. I'm always down to ride.
All right.
I get out. I work in the day, but otherwise I'm free to ride.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
I just had the time change thanks to daylight saving time, which can choke on a dick.
Yeah.
But now you'll have more time at night to ride.
Oh my God!
There you
Don't
go.
get me started on that. Well, I need to. I'll leave you guys with this. A thought and a recommendation. I need my next acquisition is a good traveling tent that is something I can set up and take down.
Road trips. Talking about road trips would be fun because there's
Yeah.
so much coming up in the summer, and I
Yeah,
want to be
it's
paid.
time to get prime. Yeah, so I want to, and
Great
then
idea.
and
I'm also buying a tent and all that. Soon
Yeah.
For my bike.
I don't want anything. I've seen there's like a bunch of that are like look kind of gimmicky. So I'd be curious to know what people's actual experience and what recommendations are. And then maybe you guys won't go all the way cross country, but at some point, Carlos, as I start stretching my legs, I got a feeling like I keep telling. I told my wife the other day, I'm like, I might just take off and go to Colorado this summer and go do Skinwalker Ranch, see Nooms, and she was like, "Go!" So I got the
Jay,
green
I
light.
Sign of a healthy marriage. Right?
Jay, I have to admit that my niece loves me more now than she ever loved me before.
Yeah, like you guys want to take off for a week, just go. Yeah, so who knows? That'll lead me.
Anyway, with that,
All right. Well, with
thought,
that, ladies and gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for
Thank
once
you.
again taking time out of your Sunday to be here with us. I really appreciate it. I'm having so much fun doing this program with you guys, and we'll talk about road tripping it next week in our next episode. Again, I thank you guys so much. I hope all of you have a fantastic rest of your Sunday. Any last words before we say goodbye, guys?
No, good to see.
Follow
the
New
three of
York
you.
City
And Jay.
Harley and Sexy Snail with an eye on Instagram.
Woohoo, sexy snail with an eye.
I followed you on Instagram. I saw the pictures of your bike. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I know.
And you know what? If you wouldn't mind getting a closer picture of where the saddlebag mounts onto the bike and post that on Instagram, that would be helpful too. So, anybody else? Any other parting words from anybody?
No, have a great week, everybody. Thanks
Yes.
for joining us.
Enjoy
You
the-
have a
much.
great week.
Cheers, everybody.
y'all.
Namaste to all your families. Enjoy the March Madness basketball. Later, everybody. Take care.
So long.
Bye.